Hello children. Today we are going to read the story Experiments. The story has been picked up from a novel written by Louisa May Alcott. Let's see who she was. Well, she was an American novelist. She is best known for her novel Little Women, which follows the lives of four sisters growing up during the American Civil War. The story above is taken from the same novel. Let's read the story further. 3 months vacation? How I shall enjoy it! I shall lie in bed late and do nothing, exclaimed Meg. I've got a heap of books and I'm going to be reading on my perch in the old apple tree, said Jo. Now we know these are the two different girls already named. Out of four, one is Meg, one is Jo. What do we mean by a perch? Well, perch is actually an elevated place for serving as a seat. That's where she's going to sit and she's going to enjoy her vacation, doing what pleases her the most. Don't let us do any lessons, Beth. Now the third girl is Beth. But play all the time and rest, proposed Amy. So, the four girls, Meg, Jo, Beth and Amy. Now, proposed means suggested. Maybe mother? Asked Meg, turning to Mrs. March. Now, mother is Mrs. March. Asked Meg, turning to Mrs. March. You must try your experiment for a week and see how you like it. I think by Saturday night you will find that all play and no work is as bad as all work and no play, said Mrs. March. Oh dear, it will be delicious, I'm sure. Now, this is something that they're going to relish. They're going to enjoy their vacation. Oh dear, it will be delicious, I'm sure, said Meg proudly. Fun forever, cried Jo. They began the experiment. Now, what was the experiment? Experiment was spending a vacation by doing just nothing. In fact, doing what pleased them and no regular work. They began the experiment by lazing for the rest of the day. Lazing, it's very lazily sitting and doing what pleased them and not the household work at all. They began the experiment by lazing for the rest of the day. Meg did not appear till 10 o'clock. That means she did not disappear somewhere, but she was sleeping. But her solitary, that means lonely, but her solitary breakfast did not taste nice, and the room seemed lonely and untidy. Why lonely? Because everybody was off to their places, and untidy because nobody bothered to clean it up also. For Jo had not filled the vases, Beth had not dusted, and Amy's books lay scattered about. So none of the girls had done their regular work. But Meg sat to rest and read. Jo spent her time reading up in the apple tree. Beth began by looking through the big closet, but got tired before it was half done. So she left it topsy-turvy and went to practice music. Amy put on her best white frock and sat down to draw, hoping someone would see and inquire who the young artist was. As no one appeared, she went to walk. Now, why did she go for a walk? So that somebody could see her frock, the beautiful frock that she was wearing. Got caught in a shower and came home dripping. It had started raining outside and her dress must have been spoiled. And came back home dripping. At tea time, they shared their experiences and thoughts, and all agreed that it had been a delightful, though unusually long day. Why do you think it was a long day for them? Because if you're working, if you're doing some kind of work, then it's for sure natural that your time passes faster. But when you're doing nothing, just lazing around, the day doesn't finish at all. Well, that's a terrible time they're going through. Let's see further what happens. Okay, usually a long day. No one wanted to say that they were tired of the experiment. See, already tired in just one day. They were tired of the experiment, hoping to impress the lesson more deeply. Impress more deeply means teach them the lesson more deeply. Mrs. March gave Hannah, the cook, a holiday. Now they had a cook also named Hannah, and Mrs. March gave Hannah a holiday, trying to teach these girls a better lesson. Since they didn't want to work, even Hannah wanted to go for a vacation, so intentionally she was sent for a vacation. Let's see. When they got up on Saturday morning, there was no fire in the kitchen, no breakfast in the dining room, and no mother anywhere to be seen. "Oh God, what happened?" cried Joe in disappointment. Meg ran upstairs and soon came back. "Mother isn't sick, only very tired. And she says she is going to stay in her room all day and let us do the best we can." Now, what is actually mother trying to do? She's trying to teach these girls a better lesson. So she also takes a seat back and she relaxes in her room and she just tells them that I'm tired, so I'm not doing any work. You people can do as you please. Now what happens? It's a very odd thing for her to do. Means mother generally doesn't do something like that. She doesn't act a bit like herself. But she says it has been a hard week for her. So we mustn't grumble, but take care of ourselves. Now what is actually grumbling? It's kind of making complaints or remarks regarding something that you don't like. That's easy enough, and I like the idea. I'm longing for something to do, added Joe quickly. They took hold of the work, but soon realized that housekeeping was no joke. There was plenty of food in the larder. Now, what's a larder? Larder is a cupboard for storing the extra food items. It's kept there in that almirah, and it's a store place for the food, extra food. Now, Beth and Amy set the table. Meg and Joe got breakfast, wondering as they did why servants ever talked about hard work. Soon a tray was laid and taken up for mother. The boiled tea was very bitter. Now, mother was upstairs, she was resting. The girls were made to prepare the breakfast. The breakfast here was prepared by Meg first. The morning breakfast made for Meg, and it was taken upstairs for mother to give her the breakfast. Now, what all things were spoilt in that breakfast? Let's see. The boiled tea was very bitter. The omelette scorched, that means absolutely burned. The omelette scorched and the biscuits burnt. Mrs. March received with thanks and laughed heartily over it after Joe was gone. Now, she didn't want to laugh on their faces, but once Joe left, she served the breakfast to her, and once Joe left, Mrs. March, the mother, she started laughing at the things happening. Downstairs, there were many complaints against the cook, Meg, for her failures. Now, who's the cook here right now? It was Meg. And there were lots and lots of complaints against Meg now. Why? Because she had failed in everything that she had made. The tea was bitter, the omelette was scorched, the biscuits were burnt, and nothing was in proper condition, right? "Never mind, I'll get the dinner ready," said Joe, who knew even less than Meg about cooking. Now, since Meg had made the breakfast and she'd spoiled everything, so Joe gave the offer of preparing the dinner, that night's dinner. But Joe was even worse than Meg. But still, since the offer was given, let's see what Meg does. This offer was gladly accepted, and Meg retired to her room. That means Meg accepted the offer and she went off to her room. So now who's going to be the cook? It's going to be Jo. Jo, with this perfect faith in her own powers and to make up the quarrel, immediately invited Laurie. Now, who's Laurie? Laurie is the boy next door to dinner. Now, there can be two reasons why she had invited Laurie. First and foremost, they must have had a fight before. So, to make up for the fight, she invited him for dinner. And she invited him more so that he could keep the things a little lighter. Maybe he could help out a little bit in the things for the dinner. So basically, two reasons this can be possible. You had better get mother's advice on cooking, said Meg wisely. Now, Meg is suggesting Jo that you better get mother's advice. Get what you like and don't disturb me. So, when Jo went up to mother to ask mother that about cooking and all, so mother says, get what you like and don't disturb me. I'm going out to dinner and can't worry about things at home. Now, mother is trying out all things to make the girls do everything themselves. She's not even going to suggest anything now, said Mrs. March when Jo spoke to her. I never enjoyed housekeeping and I'm going to take a vacation today and read, write, go visiting and amuse myself. Now, mother is going to do all this. What all is she going to do? She's going to go out for dinner. She's going to take a vacation, read, write, go visiting here and there, and amuse herself, keep herself happy. The unusual sight of her busy mother rocking comfortably in an easy chair and reading early in the morning made Jo feel as if some unnatural phenomenon had occurred. An eclipse, an earthquake, or a volcanic eruption would hardly have seemed stranger. Means these things were something so such a natural phenomenon happening which is very drastic, something so harmful everywhere, creating a lot of destruction everywhere. Similarly was the action of mother. Now that's what she felt, something unusual happening like this. Feeling very much harassed herself, Jo hurried into the parlor to find Beth sobbing. Now, harassed means troubled herself. She was so troubled herself seeing her mother reacting like this. And parlor here means living room, right? To find Beth sobbing. Now, Beth was crying. When Jo came down, she saw Beth was crying. Why was Beth crying? Let's see. It's all my fault. I forgot him. There isn't a seed of food or a drop of water left. Oh, Pip, how could I be so cruel to you? Cried Beth, taking the poor thing in her hands and trying to bring him back to life. So there must have been a pet whose food and water had all finished, and she was feeling so sad. It was my work to give you the food, but I didn't. So she was really feeling bad, and she's trying to bring him back to life. Somebody suggested after that, put him in the oven and maybe he'll get warm and revive. Somebody weird suggestions, but somebody suggesting to put in some heat by putting him in the oven so that he can revive. That means come back to life, said Amy hopefully. He's been starved. That means he's not been given the food. He's been starved and he shan't be baked. Now he's dead. He shall be buried in the garden and I'll have another, that's bad. He shall be buried in the garden and I'll never have another bird. Never, my Pip, for I am too bad to own one, murmured Beth, sitting on the floor with her pet folded in her hands. Now don't cry, Betty. It's a pity, but nothing goes right this week. And Pip has had the worst of the experiment. That means they all are not actually enjoying the experiment now. They feel that the entire week of the experiment was very bad. The most affected is Pip, their pet bird Pip. Why most affected? Because Pip lost his life because of this kind of an experiment. Lay him in my box, and after the dinner party, we'll have a nice little funeral, said Joe. Leaving the others to comfort Beth, she departed to the kitchen. Now she went inside the kitchen, which was in a dreadful state of confusion. The kitchen was in a mess completely. Putting on a big apron, when she began to work, she discovered that the fire was out. It was not burning. Having rekindled, that means lighting it again. Having rekindled the fire, she thought she would go to the market while the water heated. The walk made her happy. Why do you think it made her happy? She was out for some work now. She had to go to the market to buy something, so she is trying to work. So that walk made her a little happy. The walk made her happy. She was also pleased with herself for making good bargains. Now, when she's buying the things, she's making real good bargains from the shopkeepers. She slowly walked back home. Again, after buying a very young lobster, some very old asparagus, and 2 boxes of very sour strawberries. Now, the strawberries were very sour. So that's all these things are going to be needed for the dinner. By the time she got up, the dinner arrived and the stove was red hot. That means the fire had been burning. Mrs. March went out after saying a word of comfort to Beth. Now, since Beth was crying, Mrs. March, she just comforted her daughter and she left. A strange sense of helplessness fell upon the girls as their mother's grey hat vanished around the corner. Now, she didn't just disappear, but they kept waiting till she was out of sight. They kept looking for her. They kept seeing till they could see her, and she must have turned from the street corner. So after she was out of sight, they had started moving. But there were things happening still. Let's see what happens further. She vanished around the corner. Despair seized them. Now, what do we mean by despair? Despair means misery, sadness. Now, they were very sad. And despair seized them when, a few minutes later, Miss Crooker appeared. And she had come and said she had come to dinner. Now, just imagine, as it is, they are trying to manage a dinner and somebody self-inviting herself for the dinner with them. Now, the description of Miss Crooker is given here. She was thin, with a very sharp nose and inquisitive eyes. Always curious to know what is happening, who is this, why is this? Lots of questions inquisitive people have. So, with a sharp nose and inquisitive eyes, she saw everything and gossiped about all she saw. They disliked her, but had been taught to be kind to her, simply because she was old and poor and had few friends. So who do you think taught these girls to be kind to her? Of course, Mrs. March, the mother. So Meg gave her an easy chair and tried to entertain her. Entertain her means inviting her inside, making her comfortably sitting and talking, serving her something or the other, a little bit here and there. So that's kind of entertaining her. You entertain your guests who come at home. That's what she was doing, Meg. While she asked questions, criticized everything, and told stories of people whom she knew. Now, of other houses she must have visited, and those people she was coming and telling these girls the story about them. In time, Joe discovered it required more than energy and goodwill to make a cook. So it's not just a little bit things which are required, but you really need a lot of energy to cook. She boiled the asparagus for an hour. Now, children, asparagus is this is a green vegetable. It's a green leafy vegetable, so you don't really need to boil it so much. But this asparagus was boiled for an hour, making them perfectly inedible, something which you cannot eat. Okay, the bread burned black. The lobster was overcooked to a bright red color. The potatoes were left partly raw. In the hurry, the jelly turned out lumpy, and the strawberries were sour because of being unripe. So every menu of the dinner was inedible. Lots of things happening here. Well, they can eat some meat and bread and butter if they are hungry. Only it's disappointing to have to spend your whole morning for nothing. That means the whole morning she's been trying to go to the market, bargain things and bring them home, trying to prepare the dinner, and preparing for what? Ultimately, nobody can eat that. So it was a waste of time that Joe had done since morning. Okay, let's see. Spend your whole morning for nothing, thought Joe, as she rang the dinner bell half an hour later than usual. She was late for dinner, preparing dinner, and she was late to serve the dinner. She stood hot, tired, and disheartened, serving the feast spread before her. Now, feast is so many food items, they are all spread on the table right in front of her. She was certain Miss Crooker's sharp tongue would report them far and wide. When do we use the phrase sharp tongue? When somebody speaks a lot. And when she is going to speak about her dinner, not so good dinner in the neighborhood, she's going to feel really bad. Joe is going to feel really bad about this. Okay. Poor Joe would gladly have gone under the table. She would have been so disappointed. She would have hid herself, gone under the table, as one thing after another was tasted and left uneaten. Nobody wanted to eat that food. While Amy giggled, Meg looked distressed. Miss Crooker pursed her lips, and Laurie talked and laughed with all his might to give a cheerful tone to the festive scene. Now, this boy, the neighborhood friend whom Joe had invited, he was laughing and giggling and trying to talk and have a conversation over the dinner table to make things a little lighter. Joe's one strong point. Now, different items, so many items made, they were all not so well cooked. But Joe was very sure that one item of hers is going to be the best one. That's the dessert. Joe's one strong point was the fruit. For she had sugared it well. She'd put good amount of sugar, so she knew that was going to be very good. She had sugared it well and had a jug of rich cream to eat with it. A number of times you can compare this with your fruit custard, fruits in that creamy custard there. So that is something here. She'd cooked those strawberries, she'd put good amount of sugar and prepared a good quantity of cream also. So she knew out of all the items that she had prepared, this is going to be the best one. No matter what she spoiled the rest, but this is going to be her best one because she sugared the strawberries well. Her hot cheeks cooled a little. Now she was very nervous and now she had cooled a little, and she drew a long breath as the pretty glass plates went round and everyone looked kindly at the little rosy islands of strawberries. Strawberries floating in a sea of cream. Now that is what that was being served to everybody on the table there. Miss Crooker tasted first, made an unpleasant face, and drank some water hastily. Very quickly, she drank some water. Joe, who refused, thinking there might not be enough, glanced at Laurie, but he was eating away bravely. Now, you really needed courage to eat something that Miss Crooker could not eat, and she quickly had to drink water because of that food she had taken. And Joe was like very fond of this, so maybe she looked at Laurie and just to see what his reaction is like. But he was eating away bravely. Though there was a slight twist about his mouth, that he kept his eye fixed on his plate. He did not look around, he kept his eyes on his plate only. Annie, who was fond of delicate dishes, took a heaping full. Now she took a huge amount of spoon in her mouth because she loved these delicious food items there. So the last item, which was supposed to be very nice and very tasty, so she took a spoonful and put it all in her mouth at once. That's what we do, isn't it? Something that we really like a lot. We take extra thing in our mouth. She put it all in her mouth at once. Choked, hid her face. She choked, it got stuck in her throat, and she hid her face in a napkin and left the table hastily. She left the dining table and she ran somewhere. "Oh, what is it?" exclaimed Joe, trembling. Now, Joe was really unsure. What is this happening? What is the problem? Salt instead of sugar. She had sugared it well. Instead of the sugar, she had salted it well. So you can imagine what it's going to be. Salt instead of sugar. "And cream is sour," replied Meg, with a tragic gesture. Joe uttered a groan and fell back in her chair, remembering that she had given a last hasty powdering to the berries out of one of the two boxes on the kitchen table and had neglected to put the milk in the refrigerator. That is why the cream was sour, and this thing that she had prepared, instead of sugaring it, she had salted it. That was really pathetic for her. She turned red and was on the verge of bursting into tears. She was almost going to cry when she met Laurie's laughing eyes. The comical side of the affair suddenly struck her, and she laughed till the tears ran down her cheeks. So did everyone else, even Crooker. Now, even Crooker, as the girls called the old lady, and the unfortunate dinner ended happily, with bread and butter and fun. Then Mrs. March came along. "Are you satisfied with your experiment, girls? Or do you want another week of it?" she asked. "I don't," cried Joe decidedly. And she'd already decided, "I don't." "Nor I," echoed the others. They all spoke together. "Neither do we want it." "Yes, I wanted you to see how comfort of all depends on each doing her share faithfully." See how important this line is? I wanted you to see. Now, what did mother want to teach the girls? Mother wanted to teach the girls, to show them to see how the comfort of all depends on each doing her share faithfully. While Hannah and I did your work, you got on pretty well, though I don't think you were very happy. So I thought, as a little lesson, I would show you what happens when everybody thinks only of herself. Don't you feel that is pleasanter to help one another, to have daily duties which make leisure sweet? We do, mother, we do, cried the girls. The girls had finally learnt a lesson, isn't it? Let me advise you. What did mother advise? Let me advise you to take up your little burdens again, for though they seem heavy sometimes, they are good for us, and they seem lighter when we learn to carry them. And remember, work keeps us from boredom and mischief. We'll remember, mother, and they did. So you see how beautifully the author has told us about doing our own work. If we do at least our share, our part of the share of the work, then other things are going to be very easy for all. Well, that's it for me from my side about this chapter today. Signing out. Thank you. Bye-bye.